People's Platform.
Good evening. The Galle Literary Festival certainly attracts a lot of people, and it's not just authors. We've got performers of all types, professionals in various categories. And one such person I have with me this evening is Justin Whyte, who is not just an author, but he specializes in jazz, blues. He's a vocalist, a pianist. So he's trained in a lot of music, and he loves to tell a story through music, storyfying the music. It's nice to have him with us. Good evening, Justin. So, Justin, you just finished a workshop, which sounds really interesting, where you've actually got a group of people, perfect strangers, who came to the workshop, and they have you've got them to make songs. How did that go?
Very well. I'm glad to say. Do you know Kumar? A guy called Kumar. He's a wine merchant.
Yes,
he was in the group. He's a musician. Yeah. It went exceedingly well, and ironically, it's a terrifying performance prospect because you've got 2 hours. It's not just like we'll have a go and try and, craft something or learn a little bit about the process, and they go away and go, oh, so can I. I put pressure saying, okay, imagine you're writers for Netflix, and we have to come up, we're all getting paid $200,000 or whatever they get paid US. We've got 2 hours, we have to come up with a product. We have to get an end result. And it's up to you guys, and myself included. And it's 2 hours, so I put all the onus on them. I say, we have to, there's a classic, conceptualize what are we writing about, decide it, make all the executive choices. And each is a dangerous rabbit hole because you can spend that and your time is gone, and we have to get a result. Okay. So we have to okay, what are we writing about? What style are we doing it? And I have a laptop, a computer, and a keyboard, so it's like a portable studio speaker. And the end result is to record it, write it, produce it, make all the decisions. So we have to decide what style we're doing, what are we saying, what is the topic about, how are we going to clothe that, and then we start the writing process. And it's dangerous territory because you can get it's not easy. People get bored. It's Tim Minchin, an Australian guy, they said, oh, you must love writing songs, and you said, not really. It's micro problem solving. You love the end result. So as a facilitator, it's tricky because you can sense when the ship is sunk in the water, going to float, and sometimes you think, oh, we're going down, And miraculously, most times it comes together. Especially I teach this with kids and students and adults alike. So it went slow, tedious, and then we started somewhere, we wrote it, and then it emerged that it was a story about a relationship that's gone bad, and then I had great people in the group. And so I had a songwriter, I had a musician, I had a LA producer, and they said, let's turn it into a dance track in the middle of it. And then we needed a chorus for that. So long story short, they hung in there, and then they came up with this killer chorus. I had templates lined up. What do you want to do? And we did the chorus, and I'm going to send it all to them, but it's bound to be a hit, it was really great.
Fabulous. And how many people were there in this workshop? 10 people. So, and this is all about crafting a narrative into song, isn't it?
Yes. Okay. I mean, I did the same thing in 2019 at the festival. It was all university students, and I said, okay, what are we writing about? And what's the topics? And they said, political change. I thought, seriously, in Sri Lanka? Of course they're going to write about that. So again, and we had, it was tedious and hard going, but they hung in there, and we got a really good end result. So this was a lot of fun today. It's because the end result was quite epic, and I had some great people in the group, and it takes all kinds to contribute for it to work. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. So that's just one of the events that you're doing at GLF, isn't it?
Yeah.
Could you tell us about the other two? It's three in all, I believe.
4 actually. So the first one was a cross panel with a playwright, an author, and we were discussing the similar problems that you face when the creative process, the blank page. Where do you get inspiration from? How do you solve what your creative process is? Because my argument is that the song is the most minimal form of the novel. So that was a really amazing discussion. And then I had a gig yesterday of original material at Radisson Blu Rooftop, which went exceedingly well, and it was a lot of fun and had great musicians and beautiful setting, and it's always good to play original material in any country, but let alone this country.
And
then
what's
the last segment tomorrow is a songwriting workshop with kids from 12 to 14.
Oh wow, that will be interesting.
Yeah, so ironically, the kids is a fairly I'm familiar with, having taught for many years, and I teach this to young kids, really young kids, how to improvise and write their own material. And my success stories in that process have gone from 7 to 20 and become songwriter producers, and I've worked a lot in that area, so it's I sort of know how they're going to react a little bit. So they're I'm looking forward to that, because they're normally like quick and rapid fire, and not that adults aren't, but they're but I've done I set this up with my own students to get them to fall in love with something, and particularly when it's own, and you start really basically. One girl, her mother was a journalist, and dad was a criminal lawyer. We wrote one song. She ended up writing prolifically the most amazing stuff, and she didn't even, it was quite profound, and she didn't even realize what she was writing. And I'm like, do you know what you're saying here? She's like, no. And it was just incredible. So, and that came from such simple, here's 4 chords, loose. Okay, what are we saying here? Okay, we don't know what we're saying. Start somewhere, that grows into something. Another boy, Max, he's a university student now. We wrote one song, and it failed dismally, and he said, I'm going to give up. And I said, it's very clever, but I'm not feeling anything. He said, this is not for me. I said, hang on, just try it again. And it was amazing. 10, 15 years later, he sent me a song, and I said, this is a cover, right? It sounded like Coldplay. And he goes, no. And I said, this is yours? And he goes, yeah. And I said, how many of these have you got? And he said, oh, about 30, So another one went on to, had made gaming, grew up gaming, and would make gaming soundtracks on his iPhone with his finger. And then he went in that direction. So, yeah.
A lot of talented people.
Look, I famously said to that first student, Max, and they went from classical to jazz to songwriting. He had perfect pitch and stuff. And now I teach a lot of adults, retired CEOs, you name it, songwriting, improvisation, etc., etc. And Max said to me, oh, that's amazing, you can do that. He was like 14. I did something, he's like, that's amazing. And I said, Max, if I do my job right, you'll slowly lose respect for me. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, you'll realize it's not that amazing. So it's more familiarity with your craft than, what you'd have done for how many years have you been in media?
Oh, 35.
35, right. So you would do stuff, I'd go, and you'd be going, it's familiarity a lot. You know, when you can't do something, you look at somebody and go, that's amazing. But when you're a chef and you've been doing that, it's unconscious competency.
Now, music runs in your family.
Yes.
You're telling me that your eldest brother played with some pretty impressive people.
Yes, yeah. So I'm the youngest of 7. 6 boys, 1 girl. Grew up in northeast Victoria on a cattle farm, just about 4 hours from Melbourne. We share a similarly, what I can relate to Sri Lanka is we share a similar harsh climate. It was very dry heat, bushfires in summer, really cold winter, dry heat in summer. So there's music and sport, you know. And so John auditioned for a band at 18, and he was very talented, and we were classically trained. And Mum and Dad said, yeah, let him go, he won't get it. And he came back and said, I'm going on the road. He ended up in Sydney, and then ended up playing with Cilla Black and Rita Coolidge and Linda Ronstadt.
Wow.
And, yeah. So, but he...
Some big names there.
Yeah, well, I said, how did that happen? And he said, I was just in the right place at the right time, and they came through. And but yeah, I had a classical teacher, but he was my first unofficial teacher. So he introduced me to jazz, Oscar Peterson at 14, and what he was doing I thought was cool. And I'm going to setting up with him at gigs when I'm 10 years old. So I'm sort of doing, my parents introduced me to Chopin and stuff like that. And then I sort of followed in his footsteps.
Right. Now, you're quite familiar with Sri Lanka, aren't you? You've been here many times. I
wear the fact that I drive here as a badge of honor.
Absolutely, you're very brave. You know, we Sri Lankans drive here, of course, but not many people from outside Sri Lanka dare to drive in this country.
I've driven Europe a lot, the States a lot. I'm used to left-hand drive. I nearly had a bad head-on coming out of, I was playing in New Orleans, driving up to Houston, left at 5 o'clock in the morning. It was like, this guy's on the wrong side of the road. And then I realized I was on the wrong side of the road within a second, and went, oh, you know, and went, okay. Chrissy screamed to the high heavens, and that woke us up.
But you've driven up to Jaffna?
Yeah, so I drove a Wagon R, which wasn't 800cc, it was 600cc, had no power, from Colombo to Jaffna, right around. But it's I grew up driving on a farm and stuff, but you get into a rhythm and a flow, and it's actually quite a thrill. It's a learning process, but I do think that if you want to get to know a country, more so Sri Lanka, drive in the country, and you'll understand the people. It's really good for your reflexes too.
Absolutely. But you haven't been back here in Sri Lanka for
6 years.
6 years?
Yes.
Right, so
yeah.
A lot has changed.
From 2 years ago, where things were, there's a lot of hope, a lot of positivity. We've noticed the skyline in Colombo, the new hotels, is like, wow. It's down south. We went down. You remind me of driving experiences. So basically, yes, we've noticed a lot of development. And we went to Arogambe, and they said you can go this way, and or this way, but this way you have elephants. And some foreigners think that this is regulated and it's some sort of controlled environment. And they said take bananas, and I said, Chrissy, I've grown up with bulls and stuff. I respect what they can do. We've got, sure enough, bang, there's a big fellow blocking the highway saying you can't go this way, and got the bananas, and he was, because they can move so fast, we threw it, he took it, and we got around him. That happened 6 times on the way there, and your heart stops. And I said to the local boys, what happens if you don't have bananas? And they said, we don't know. So, yeah.
You're certainly enjoying Sri Lanka.
It's always an overload of the senses between the assault of hospitality, and I'm particularly blessed by my partner being Sri Lankan and Sri Lanka having no degree of separation. It's always
Everyone knows everyone.
yes, yeah. So I could write a small book on my experiences here.
Well, it's been great to have you on the show, Justin. Thank you very much for being with us.
Pleasure.
Justin Whyte, and now we will move on to our next guest. Thank you. Hello, we're at the Galle Literary Festival, and we are with Susan Jung, who has my dream job. She is a food blogger and a food columnist for Vogue Hong Kong. Imagine that, being a journalist who specializes on food. Wow, I wish we had that kind of job in Sri Lanka. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you so much.
Right, Susan, how did you become a food specialist? What was it about? I mean, kids dream of becoming doctors, astronauts, teachers, whatever. Did you always want to be a food critic?
Actually, yes. I remember when I was young, around in about 15, and my friend and I were talking about what we wanted to be when we grow up. And she said she wanted to be a travel editor, and I said I wanted to be a food writer. And I became a food writer.
You followed your dream.
I'm the luckiest person in the world.
And you're from California originally.
From California, yes.
But now you live in Hong Kong.
Yes.
Okay. And you specialize in chicken, fried chicken.
Well, that's what the book is about.
Okay.
I really love fried chicken. I think every meat-eating culture has a recipe for fried chicken, and also I like it that chicken is a very neutral meat, that religions can eat it, all religions can eat it as long as they eat meat, and so it's not controversial.
Okay. And I saw a description of you online which says you have tasted every fried chicken recipe that you could ever wish for.
That I can, no, not every fried chicken recipe that I can wish for. Every fried chicken recipe every fried chicken that I can eat. I haven't tried it yet in Sri Lanka, and I'm looking for it.
Okay, you've got to try it. You've got to try it. But you've also got to try the chicken curry.
I've tried that, and chicken kutu, which I really love.
Okay.
And I've tried a lot of Sri Lankan dishes, but not fried chicken.
Okay. So your book is titled Kung Pao Chicken and Beyond.
Kung Pao and Beyond.
Right. Okay. Kung Pao and Beyond. And so, is it only about recipes, or do you go deeper into it?
Well, it's 60 fried chicken recipes from East and Southeast Asia, and because you cannot live on fried chicken alone, even I cannot live on fried chicken alone, I've given some recipes for accompaniments to go with fried chicken. But it's all recipes, and there's some narrative about, where I got a recipe from, or, the very first recipe is called Mom's Fried Chicken, and that's because it's something that my mother used to make when we were young, and it's the first fried chicken recipe that I ever made, that I ever cooked.
So is your family as crazy about fried chicken as you are?
No, I don't think so. I don't know if anybody else is.
Interesting indeed, interesting. And you're a food blogger as well. So.
No, I'm a food columnist.
Okay.
I don't blog very often, only once in a while, and I should blog more. But I write about food on Instagram, and that's about it. And then as well as writing for Vogue Hong Kong.
Okay. So on Instagram, you must be getting a tremendous number of hits when you put up a post on chicken or any kind of
not. It's not in the hundreds of thousands yet, and I don't know if it ever will be that big.
Okay, and you also judge food contests.
No, not. It's not judging. It's I'm what they call the Academy Chair for the Hong Kong and Macau region for Asia's 50 best restaurants and World's 50 best restaurants. So I don't judge restaurants. I pick the people who vote for restaurants, and I'm also a voter myself for my region. And it's basically it's not a competition. It's what people deem to be their top favorite restaurants anywhere in Asia or anywhere in the world. So it's more like a popularity contest.
Okay. So here at Galle Literary Festival, you are doing several workshops, I believe. Could you tell us about them?
Today's is with a British person named Andy Oliver. She was born in Britain. I'm not quite sure where, and her parents are from the Caribbean, and her book is called Pepper Pot Diaries, and it's about the food from the Caribbean. And then tomorrow I'm doing an event with Andy, Ravinda, and Dom, and that's about the diaspora, about being from somewhere else, and you're moving to a country that's foreign to you, or your parents, it was foreign to your parents.
Okay, and of course in China you have so many different types of cuisine.
Yes, but I'm not from Hong Kong. Yes, yes.
I mean, Hong Kong would have a lot of those types of cuisine in restaurants in Hong Kong. So which would be your favorite?
That is so hard, because there's no one cuisine that I want, every day of the year, 24 hours a day. But if I had to choose, I think it would be the food of that I grew up with, which is Cantonese food. It's very, known as being very subtle and light, and a lot of steamed dishes. But there's so many different cuisines that I love, and there's so many different cuisines that are available in Hong Kong. So I'm very lucky about that, because if I want Shanghainese food, I can go to a Shanghainese restaurant. Sichuan food, Hunan food, really good Indian food, really good. There's one Sri Lankan restaurant that I just love called Hotel Colombo. There's excellent European cuisines. So Hong Kong is really a wonderful place for dining.
Okay, and when you're doing workshops and teaching young writers about food writing, what do you tell them? What are the main points?
Well, I haven't done that yet, but if I were to do it, I would tell the writers to be honest. There's so many people who are out for clicks, and on Instagram they just want to get, they want their videos to go viral, and if it's not true to yourself and true to the restaurant, because you've got somebody's livelihood in your hands when you write a restaurant review. If you don't tell the truth, then you could be ruining somebody's life for a lie, and that is just a terrible thing to do. So be true to yourself and be true to the restaurant.
Okay, and can anyone be a food writer, a food critic, or does it take certain aptitudes?
No, I think everybody has an opinion about food. Whether or not it's an informed decision is really important. I was a pastry chef. I was a chef. I worked in restaurants, so I know what it's like to receive a bad review. And I think I write with a sensitivity that I'm never going to say. I will never publish a review where I can only say bad things, because I think that's not fair. I think that not everybody needs to be a chef in order to be a good food writer. As long as you have a good palate, then you can write about food. But being able to write well is something else.
So you are with Vogue Hong Kong, and of course that's quite a famous magazine. What's the difference now with social media as opposed to magazines or newspapers when it comes to food writing?
I think both of them drive each other. I think online publications are really important because they've become important, whereas print media I think it's sort of equalizing in that people who read online might be going to the print rather than, so it drives the interest from online, which everybody can access, to print media.
Okay. And have you done much traveling in South Asia to sample South Asian cuisine?
Yes, I mean, I try to travel everywhere. I was in Jaipur and Mumbai and Delhi before coming here, and I mean, I really love the food. There's just so much to explore, and I'm really interested in knowing about regional Sri Lankan cuisine because I have only been to Colombo and Galle, and I want to know what it's like in other parts of Sri Lanka.
Oh, absolutely. So you've got different cuisine in the north, in Jaffna, and then Kandy is a bit different
that
as well.
Interests me.
Yes.
I mean, everybody thinks of, a lot of people think of Chinese cuisine as one cuisine, where it's not. It's so many different regional cuisines, and I'm sure that's what it's like here.
Absolutely. So I hope you get to travel around a bit.
I hope so.
If not on this trip, maybe you'll come back again.
I hope so.
Travel around. And have you been to, say, the Middle East?
No, I've not been there.
Okay. No. And in Europe, of course, you have all the different cultures. What about those?
Oh, I love France. I've been quite a lot to France, but I'm traveling now a lot more within Asia just because it's closer. I don't have to fly as far, and a 13-hour plane ride in economy is not fun. So if I can take a flight that's only 3 or 4 hours, that's much nicer.
Okay. So one final question, Susan. When you tell people that you are a food writer, or they learn that you're a food writer, what's the reaction you get? I mean, the reaction from me was, I wish I had that job.
That's everybody's reaction.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
When I was food editor for the South China Morning Post, everybody said, you have the best job in Hong Kong. And I always said, yes, I do have the best job in Hong Kong.
Lovely, wonderful. And maybe it's time for a career change for me as well. Okay, thank you very much, Susan Jung, for being with us, and enjoy your stay in Sri Lanka.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The People's Platform.
Prefect. Tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. on TV1.
Every day, millions face the impossible. What happens when clean water feels out of reach? When an entire village is left helpless? When it seemed like no one is listening, Gammadda saw the need. Gammadda took action and a community fought back. A water purification system for a village that once had none. Gammadda, for the people, by the people. The People's Platform.
Hello there, we are with Dr. Eithne Nightingale, who is an award-winning writer, photographer, filmmaker, and researcher. Welcome, Dr. Eithne. So, you are a specialist on child migration, among all the other things that you have done over a long career.
Yeah.
But child migration, that's very interesting, because people don't tend to think of the issues of children when they migrate, do they? It's sort of not something that's in the spotlight as much as it should be.
No, I think that's right. If you look at stories of migration or studies of migration, it doesn't often focus on children per se. And for example, what's extraordinary is that nearly half the displaced people in the world today are under 18. So it really needs that focus on child migrants.
And when you're talking about child migration, it's the normal migration routines, plus, of course, the internally displaced people as well, IDPs, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, my focus is people who've migrated to Britain from 1930 to the present day, from all over the world. So it starts with people who came from Hitler's Europe, Jewish mainly refugees, and it ends with children who came from Ukraine in 2022. But it also includes people who came from former parts of the British Empire, like Sri Lanka or South Asia or the Caribbean. But it also comes from people who are displaced by war, whether that's from Nigeria or El Salvador or Somalia, and for different reasons as well. So, and some people came with their families. A lot of children came to join their families. The parents came first. And then there are children who've come on their own for various reasons.
Okay, so that can be quite tragic when
Yes.
children come on their own.
Yes.
And where we are in the midst of another migrant crisis in the United States, and of course there's Ukraine, Gaza, and so on. The DRC, Sudan, there's just so many to name right now.
Extraordinary, extraordinary.
But what do you look for? What are the factors that you focus on when you're talking or researching about child migration?
Well, I've done very open-ended interviews with people who came to Britain under the age of 18. And of course, they may be 5 or 16, or they may be 88, depending when they came. And I have very open-ended interviews in order that people will be, if you have 2 prescribed questions, then it gets a bit static. So they're quite open-ended questions, and people choose what they want to say. I think some of the major themes that have come out, particularly with child migrants, is often particularly in step migration, when the parents go first. So the child has already experienced that loss of a key 1 or 2 parents. They get attached to their grandmother or their aunt, and then they join their parents, and then they have the loss of losing their person who's looked after them, and they may not recognize their mum or dad at the airport. So there were some very telling stories about that whole thing about attachment for children, as well as the impact of war on children, which is, we can see on our televisions today in Gaza or whatever, is so these things can last a lifetime. I mean, many children are resilient, but sometimes their choices are very limited about how they can deal with things, but they show fantastic resilience. And the stories are full of pain, but they're also full of joy, and they're full of all the complexity of life, but they're very moving stories. And as you say, the people who come on their own, children who come on their own, is a particular challenge. They may have traveled across from Eritrea, they may have been trafficked on the way, in prison, got across dodgy boats, whatever. And then one very moving story of a 16-year-old who came from Guinea to escape FGM and forced marriage that she was, and her older sister, had died of it. So with her mother's help, she escaped. And she arrived in East London on her own, not speaking the language. She's done extraordinarily well, and she's now works as a nurse, a theatre nurse on the South Coast, and has 2 lovely children.
So that's so nice. Yeah. Now, what piqued your interest to focus on child migration? I see, of course, that you have been focusing on equality, racial and social justice issues, and so on.
Yeah, I've got a background of dealing on equality and diversity in the educational and cultural sectors. But the last main job in that, I was at the Victoria and Albert Museum, which is his world collection of art, including from Sri Lanka and Asia. And I was asked there to develop something called The World in the East End with the V&A Museum of Childhood. They've got a Museum of Childhood in the East End. So I asked different communities to contribute to that. to tell their life stories to this gallery. And the university wanted somebody to develop that, to focus on child migration. So I did that. But alongside that, I made films about child migrants. And the book is less theoretical, it's more...
This is your latest book,
yeah.
isn't it? Child Migrant Voices in Modern Britain. So that's very interesting indeed.
So it's the voices of the children that come through in here, or who came as children, yeah.
Okay. And some of the films you've done on child migration include Child Migrant Stories and Child Migrant Voices in Modern Britain. So when you're doing these movies, is it movies for general viewing, or is it for TV? And how do you get a producer to spend the time and effort and funds for this?
I have it's very low key in some ways. So I worked with a graduate film editor, a wonderful film editor, Mitchell Harris, and we collected these stories and we used iPhone. He's brilliant. So we used the latest iPhone and he edited them. And some of them are 5 minutes, some of them are 25 minutes. Then we commissioned to do an hour's on Turkish migrants. But they pack a punch. They're on the website, childmigrantstories.com. They've been shown in cinemas, they've been shown in schools, in museums, festivals. So they're not, highly produced films, but they're used quite extensively. And they're very moving. They're really moving. So watch them. They're very available to everybody.
And I'm sure they must be providing a lot of information for researchers and other media persons and so on.
Yes, I suppose so. I mean, I think we've had children as young as 6 watch them and love them, or really engage with them. We're showing one at the festival about a child who came from Vietnam in a boat, one of the boat people, whose father I knew, and then he introduced me to his daughter to interview. So, they're used in universities, but they're also used online. I mean, I think there are people in Vietnam who are watching it online because there's something about a story, and there are people in the Caribbean who are watching it, So, I'm not saying they're mega produced, but I think some of the stories, if we had the money behind it, it could be wonderful. Particularly the story of the girl who escaped Guinea from FGM, it's a very powerful story. So they're not mega productions, but they've been seen in, over 50 venues, and they're online, so.
Wonderful. And also during COVID, you switched track a little bit, as did we all, yes. I think. And you did something called the Stay Home series. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah. Well, that was through my university, Queen Mary University, who don't seem to want to let me go. They keep involving me and Mitch to do these podcasts and films. So I researched. I worked with a local museum to research their collections. They were of experiences of COVID. And we did some films and podcasts. I photographed all the people in my street holding objects that had sustained them during lockdown and produced a book. So that became a film. We did podcasts about the impact on ethnic minorities or marginalized communities. So we did certain podcasts and films which try to reflect the impact of COVID on people's relationship to home. And that was a research project with the university as well.
Excellent. And this is not your first time at GLF.
No, it's not.
You were here 15 years ago, but it was as a travel journalist.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, I suppose, it's... I've always loved writing, so when I was about 50, I started doing travel journalism, and I was picked up by the Australian press, interestingly enough. And so they were sort of... I think I was in India. I was in Bangalore doing a photography project for the museum, and then decided, I want to come to this festival. It looks really interesting. So I wrote to them. And so I did a travel article 15 years ago about the festival here. So that persuaded me. I always want to come back to this. And so I wrote and said, I've written a book, and here I am, and it's wonderful.
Fabulous. And what are you doing at GLF this time?
Well, this morning we had a great conversation between three of us and a chair about the use of oral histories. And there was one speaker talking about oral histories in Sri Lanka with women during conflict, one who's talking about the impact during partition in India, and me talking about the impact of oral histories. It was a really brilliant session. We had so much to share. And tomorrow morning, we're starting off with the film Passing Tides about the child migrants of Vietnam. Then we're having a conversation, and Hajra will be joining me, and she is Zora. She's called Zora in the book, who came from Pakistan.
Oh,
and she's here because she's doing yoga. So I said, well, come with me and join the panel, because that's always what I try to do, is all the people who are in the book can contribute to events or this film screening. So there's a direct communication between the audience and those people with lived experience. Because I'm not a child migrant, although my mother was a child migrant from Ireland to Britain as a teenager.
But I'm sure those who attend your panel discussions will learn quite a lot on this very key subject.
Yeah, I hope so.
Dr. Eithne Nightingale, thank you very much for being with us this evening, and all the best to you, and keep up all the great work you're doing on child migration.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you, and thank you for inviting me.
The People's Platform.